Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I went through over 10 years of severe chronic illness with diagnosis of Lyme disease and chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and so many other things. And I've been sharing my story online to help others move out of their chronic experiences and into a life where they can do whatever they want and they feel good. I actually was just asked the question recently, or asked if I could film a video talking about all of the things that I went through, like how sick I was essentially. Like, can you talk about how bad you were? Which actually I get asked that quite often, even in coaching sessions. People will ask me, can you just tell me again, like, how sick you were? Can you just like explain to me or tell me about this one specific thing? So I thought I would just kind of think of whatever came to mind here and kind of just riff off of it. So I was thinking just yesterday as I was sitting in the bright sun, just allowing like the sunlight to come in and remembering how extremely light sensitive I was, and that it was early 2019. I just found a journal entry from this time where I was sitting in a dark room and I was wearing dark sunglasses and I had noise canceling headphones on, and I was so light sensitive that you know, even just the little bits of light coming through, or the light that I had on in the room to be able to see with the dark curtains closed, was too much. And it was a really rough time. It was a time where I didn't want to be living anymore. I was in so much pain and I was just so miserable. You know, I didn't want to be in my body, I should say, like, because it was so painful. I had at this point gotten to this, like, okay, I'm going to get better. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't see any path to how exactly this is going to happen. I knew I had, you know, brain retraining as a tool that I had started, and, you know, cold therapy and breath work, but I was still responding to everything at this point. So it was very daunting to be feeling that and then not being able to eat foods. So I was so sensitive to everything. I had somebody else recently ask me, were you sensitive? You know, some video I had posted about the food sensitivities, and they were like, were you ever sensitive to supplements? And I was so sensitive to supplements, to everything, that I actually was seen in a Chinese naturopath that did NAET, which is a treatment for sensitivities to literally anything. And so she was treating me for the basic nutrients in foods like vitamin B, vitamin D, vitamin C, the ability to absorb fats, because basically when I went to her, my stool didn't even look like stool. It looked like, I don't even, like a shiny pudding. She even was like, this is your stool? She had never seen anything like it. And then it just had undigested food in it. I was just not digesting my food, or very little bits of it. Obviously I was digesting some of it to stay alive, but very little bits of it. So yeah, I was miserable. I had skin rashes everywhere. I had massive yeast infections, extremely painful in the feminine areas, and my face was always broken out in rashes. So it was embarrassing to go out and, you know, have this massive rash around my mouth, or my lips are just cracked and broken open. And I have some videos where I've posted those pictures. I'm not going to edit this one because I'm just going to get it out there, but you can look back and see some of my old videos that have it. Maybe I'll link them down below, or some of the other ones. You can go back to my very first YouTube video, which I watched about a year ago, just to see what I had said in there. And I am like, I can't even steam mop the floor without having like a crash afterwards, where I needed to completely rest and maybe not do anything else that day, you know, other than take my supplements and make my meals and do a detox bath and a coffee enema. That was pretty much my life at that point, which was in 2016. I think when I posted that first video, it might have been 2017. And my day-to-day was basically just research and figure out what's going on. Try to find, and this was over 10 years of this, try to find the cure, try to find initially a diagnosis. You know, it took 3 years to get diagnosed with Lyme disease. And then when I did all these different treatments, I still got sicker and sicker. The light and sound sensitivity was one of the worst things, and it was one of the last symptoms to be alleviated because it was one of the worst things. So is that the neural pathways that were connected to that, because it was so prevalent for me, it was such a big, heavy thing that my brain had ingrained, you know, and I had such charged emotions, such reactions to it, that it was the hardest thing to get rid of, I would say, just thinking off the top of my head, that it was the training, the brain retraining into the neural pathways and changing all of that was just incredibly difficult. It just took time, you know, it took a lot of diligence, and it took a lot of time to do that. I was having pain in all of my joints. I would often have bone pain where I just get a throbbing pain. I remember having growing pains as a kid, and it felt just like growing pains. It was just a throbbing in my my leg bones, usually is where I would feel it, especially in my upper leg bones. So that was but I would also feel it in my arms. I would get it in different places. It's typically in the long bones though. I had TMJ to an extreme extent. I have a video on that as well. I was just in excruciating pain getting migraines, and I didn't typically get just traditional migraines, but I would get where my neck would tense up so bad and my jaw would tense up so bad that I would get the shooting pain over, like, up the back of my head and over into my right eye. That was like a common thing for me, was to get that. And I would sometimes just have that consistently for weeks or even over a month at a time, and it just wouldn't go away. That would just be my reality for that long. I was having teeth pain, my gums had receded, and I was getting cavities, which, by the way, my gums are way better, and some of the cavities totally healed up on their own. I had a couple fixed initially, and I had such bad anxiety that I didn't end up going back, and this was, I think, in 2017, and I went to the dentist 2 years ago, and they were like, your cavities are healed up. And so that was really cool. And what else? There was just so much, like everything. Like, I remember my head hurt, my scalp was always sore, it hurt to brush my hair, it hurt even just feeling my hair move on the top of my head. I was having just pain in the eyes, just my eye, the organs of my eyes were always hurting, the muscles of my eyes were always hurting, sound was just excruciating. Specific sounds were worse than others, but it felt like I just didn't want to hear. So it's funny because my ears would actually start blocking up with wax. It was almost like a protective mechanism to be like, oh, you don't want to hear because it's painful, so we're just going to block you up with wax. But then I would get yeast infections in my ears and bacterial infections in my ears, and then I had to treat those, and I had to go get my ears flushed out. So that was a constant thing for me, was going to the emergency room or the doctor and getting my ears flushed out, because I'd wake up with like a massive infection, and they were like, how is the earwax doesn't even build this fast. So we knew it was yeast because it was building so incredibly fast. Of course it was earwax too, and the doctors say things all the time that they were like, I didn't think this was possible, and then of course it was. Actually, one time I had the tiniest little pill. I don't even remember what I was taking it for. It was the tiniest pill I've ever taken, and I swallowed it, and it went somehow up into like between my nose and my mouth, and it stuck to the side of my like cavity there, and I couldn't get it out. So I made an appointment with a ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they didn't believe me. They were like, there's no, and it was like burning and it hurt and it just wouldn't leave. And so I made an appointment, and they were like, there's nothing there. That's like impossible for that to happen. Now I go to the doctor, and they put the thing down my nose, and they look, and they're like, there's a pill stuck to the side of your throat. I'm like, or your cavity. I'm like, I know. That's why I'm here. And they just couldn't believe it. And so there's been a lot of those instances that have happened over the years. So trust your intuition on what you're feeling, because you know your body and you know what's normal for you. So never doubt that, or at least go get it checked, you know, to see. We can use these resources from our doctor and these diagnostic tools for our benefit. So that was something that my naturopath said to me once. She's like, I'm a big fan of diagnostics. You know, even if we decide not to use the treatment with them, we can use it for moving forward in how you do want to treat what's going on. So that's very much always stuck with me, because I think there was an adherence to Western medicine for a while in general. Like, I didn't want to go. I had to, because another thing, I had a benign tumor on my thyroid when I think I was around 21-ish or so when this happened, and it started to choke me, and so that's how I went in and found out that I had it, because it started to choke me and I could see it on the outside. And so I went in and I was like, you know, I have this thing, and so they did a biopsy, and they're like, well, it's benign, just come back if it, you know, gets worse, you know, if it's starting to bug you. And it was so many months later, I was choking on my water and my food like constantly. And so I went in and they removed it. So I actually only have half of a thyroid, and I was told that I would forever be on thyroid medication, pig hormone. I was on Armour thyroid for the rest of my life because I only had half a thyroid. And I just was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like that's not true. So I would have to go see this endocrinologist every 6 months for years, right? Probably like 8 years or so I went and saw this endocrinologist. And then I just suddenly was like, my body got to a level where I was feeling really strong, and I felt like I didn't have to be on it. It was over that. It was over 8 years. And I was just feeling really strong and didn't feel like I had to take it anymore. I just had this knowing. And sure enough, I just didn't go get it refilled. I just stopped taking it, and I'm fine. My periods are actually more balanced now than they've ever been in my life, and like, they've always been super irregular, and they're more regular now, and I'm not having any problems at all. So if a doctor's telling you that you might not ever get off your medications, or that you just point blank won't get off your medications, you know, depending on what it is and what you're using it for, maybe, you know, changing that mentality in your mind could make a big difference. And this is part of the brain retraining too. Of course, like, you know, like certain medications, you know what you're taking them for. Like, I'm never giving medical advice on any of this stuff, but just keep an open mind to it, and, you know, like, see if there's stories out there of people who have gotten off of the medication you're on for similar reasons, and see if, you know, it might be possible for you to do that. That's how I believed that I would get better. That's how I began to know that I was going to get better, was that I was watching all of these videos of people who had gotten better, who had completely come out of their chronic experiences and were thriving. And that's how I believed it. And so when I found that other people had gotten off of their thyroid medication, when they had been told that they would need to be on it forever, I was like, oh, well, I can do that too. So I did. And there's so many things. I feel like there was just always something wrong. Cold sore breakouts constantly. I still get cold sore breakouts every once in a while. I'm actually taking L-lysine. Just started taking that consistently. Lomatium dissectum is another one. I take it from Hawaii Farm. That is a great one for helping with the cold sores. But that was something that I would just get like whenever I'd get my period, because it wasn't monthly, it was regular, I would get a cold sore because the system weakens at that point. Foot pain, heel pain, it was constant. The area in between the big toe and the second, or the first toe, the big toe and the toe next to the big toe, that area on the foot there is actually a liver point, and it was so tender to touch. It was like I would do massage there because of acupressure to help like clear the liver and help with that, but I would get acupuncture in that point, and it was so excruciating to get it in that point. And actually one time I had so much chi built up in my foot that she put the needle in, and a second later it shot out across the room. It literally went ping right out of my foot, and she like looked at me, and we looked at each other, and she's like, I've never seen that happen before. I had like so much toxicity built up in my liver that it was just shot across the room. It was always painful there. My knees started swelling in high school when I was running track, and that was when we knew that there was some really big imbalance going on in my system, was that I was getting like swollen, painful knees. My elbows would hurt when I was like reading or looking at my phone. I actually just found the other day the stand that I had to hold my books or my phone in front of me, because I couldn't read a book without with my elbows bent, because my elbows would be in so much pain. I would have to lay there like this and just like straighten both my arms and just take deep breaths and like I would have to do this sometimes for 20 minutes to half an hour, and you can't do anything when you're just laying there with your arms straight. You're just like waiting. I'm sensitive to the light. I'm sensitive to sound. I spent a lot of time in silence, just lying there, just creating some kind of creating some kind of harmony within my system, allowing my nervous system to relax and allowing the inflammation to go down, which the coffee enemas and the hot hyperthermia baths really helped with a lot. And then the cold therapy, I like to do the mix of the two in contrast therapy with the hyperthermia baths and the cold. I think my hair was falling out tremendously to the point where I thought that I was gonna need to get a wig at one point, because I was getting like bald in certain parts. And one of the treatments I did, actually the first one where I lost my gallbladder due to the extreme detoxing that was happening without the knowledge of needing to detox. My body was trying to process all the IV antibiotics. I had 2 chest ports, and this first one, my body was trying to process everything, and it just couldn't. So I had my gallbladder taken out because it got extremely infected, which I have a video on that whole story. They didn't believe me that my gallbladder was infected, so I sat in excruciating pain for a week until they were like, oh my god, your gallbladder is severely infected. We must do an emergency surgery, which now I would have done totally differently. As soon as I would have begun to feel this, like I was 22 was when I did this treatment, and I would now have like been like, oh my god, I just need to do like a gallbladder flush, I need to take some ox bile, I need to do all these different things. Like I just didn't know at that point, you know, I was so early on in the process, and I was really just showing up to a doctor and like just assuming that they would tell me what to do, because I didn't know that, you know, I didn't know the information. You know, it was very early on in the process. So, gut stuff, I was constantly, I mean, we talked about like what my stools looked like essentially already. You're welcome. I ended up having bloating that was so bad. It would look like I was 6 months pregnant, and I had like no weight on me at some of these points, and I was just like a bloated belly, you know, like underweight and a bloated belly. And it was so painful. It was so painful, and I felt like I couldn't move when that would happen, and I couldn't get comfortable at all. I literally felt like I was pregnant. I had pretty much every pregnancy symptom without pregnancy. And I remember when women would get pregnant, they'd talk about their pregnancy symptoms, there was a part of me at the time that was very furious, because I was like, but you know, this ends in 9 months. Like, I don't even know if this is ever gonna end or when it's gonna end. And I remember just being so resentful and having so much frustration, and that was just silly. But it was just, that was my life at the time, and it was hard. So I was itchy all the time because of the rashes on my body. I remember having like extreme itching. I was breaking out in rashes in my mouth. My tongue would start peeling, my lips would start peeling, the area around my mouth, the inside of my nose, and I'd get like little cuts right here from being exposed to VOCs, like laundry detergents and perfumes and colognes, air fresheners, just anything, you know. I was breaking out to anything and everything essentially that wasn't an all-natural thing that comes from Mother Earth. So it was like I had an antenna like system that was being like, this is fake, there are chemicals in this is not something you should be around, which now I can tolerate. I, you know, choose not to, and I, you know, will avoid it as much as possible, but I'm not going to break out in rashes to it. Trying to think. I would get like cysts and weird things that would just happen on a fairly regular basis. You know, swollen lymph nodes, that was a big one. That one actually started when I was 13. That was one of the big indicators that something was really going on in my system. My system was imbalanced in a big way. And so I started having the swollen lymph nodes, which actually, when I first had the tumor on my thyroid, I thought it was probably like a lymph node thing, but it wasn't painful, so it was weird. There's just so many things. I feel like I could just continue going on with how sick I was. And you know, it's funny because like I don't, like in brain retraining and all this stuff, it's like you don't want to keep talking about all of this and everything, so it's like funny to be talking about it, but you know, it's from a totally different side and a different lens now and a different purpose and talking about everything. So yeah, I guess I'll end that here, and just to give you all some hope that, you know, you can come from tremendously dark depths, you know, really deep in the tunnel, not being able to see the light, not being able to see that you can stare right at the sun again, you know, that there is joy and abundance in front of you. Know that it's possible, that I have done it and many other people have done it, and it's not going to be a quick and easy path. It's going to be, you know, it's literally going to test you to every single limit. You're going to have to set boundaries with people. You're going to have to speak your voice. You're going to have to say what you need. You're going to have to do your research, listening to your body, listening to your intuition, your inner guidance, and what you need to do for you. It's taking full responsibility for you. Like, nobody else can do that. You know, maybe a doctor can give you a pill to help you with something, but nobody else can tell you exactly what you need, you know, or what your body is feeling. So know that you do have it within you. I didn't think I did in the beginning. I didn't understand it all, but you do have it within you. You absolutely do. And you're super powerful. Your body knows how to heal. Your body was absolutely designed to heal. So, all right. Well, I send you so much light and so much love, and I hope that this helped you in some way. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.